My name don't matter, bro. But what I seen, what I lived through, that shit matters to everyone who thinks they know what really goes down behind them walls. Y'all see the news, right? Some convict gets shanked, riot breaks out, guard gets jumped. Media paints us like animals, like we just born evil. Politicians use us for votes, talking about tough on crime and all that bullshit. But I'm here to tell you the real story, the one they don't want you to hear. You probably thinking, who the fuck is this guy to be talking? I ain't nobody special, just turned 29 last month. But I spent the last 11 years inside. County, state pen, max security. Wasn't no punk either, wasn't no snitch. I was a soldier, ran with the lifers, the ones who control everything from the inside. I was in them meetings where decisions get made, where lives get decided over a game of spades. I seen guards smuggle in more drugs than any street dealer. I watched wardens shake hands with gang leaders while cameras rolled for the public, then make deals in private that would make your head spin. I was there when a 19-year-old kid got stabbed 47 times over a fucking candy bar. And I was there when the same system that failed him tried to cover it up. The question that's worth $1 million is this: who really runs the show? Who's the puppet master pulling strings while we kill each other for pocket change and respect that don't mean nothing? It ain't the warden, it ain't the guards, it ain't even the gang leaders everybody fear. Nah, the real power sits in suits, in boardrooms, making money off our misery while we tear each other apart for their entertainment. My story ain't about being hard or gangster. It's about how a scared kid from the projects learned that the whole system, from the streets to the cells to the courts, is just one big business. And we the product being sold. I almost didn't make it out. Hell, part of me still ain't out. But I'm here, breathing free air for the first time in over a decade, and if I'm gonna die tomorrow, at least somebody gonna know the truth about what really happens when them cell doors slam shut. So sit back and listen close, because this ride goes deep. I'm gonna take you back to 2013, when I was 18 years old and thought I knew everything. Gonna show you how an angry kid becomes a number, how that number learns to survive, and how survival in that place changes your soul forever. The system wants you to think prison is about punishment, about paying your debt to society. But I'm here to tell you the real truth. It's about money, control, and keeping certain people in their place while others get rich off our pain. Born in 1995 in East Baltimore, where the sirens never stop and hope dies young. Born in 1995 in East Baltimore, where the sirens never stop and hope dies young. If you ain't from the hood, you don't understand what that means. It ain't just being poor, man. It's living in a war zone where your own government gave up on you, before you could even walk. My pops bounced when I was 6, disappeared like smoke in the wind. Never saw his face again. My mom, Sandra, she was everything to me. Worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. Left the house at 5 a.m., came back past midnight dead on her feet. All that grinding just to pay rent on a roach-infested apartment that the landlord wouldn't fix. We lived off whatever we could get. Some weeks it was just ramen noodles and hope. I watched my mother cry in the kitchen thinking I was asleep because she couldn't put food on the table. Watched her skip meals so I could eat. That shit marks a kid for life, you feel me? You grow up with this rage, this anger at the whole world for dealing you a fucked up hand. In my neighborhood, the state only showed up 2 ways. Either it was cops harassing store owners for bribes, or it was the SWAT team coming through spraying bullets, not giving a damn who was innocent and who wasn't. When I was 17, life dealt the final blow. My mom's got diagnosed with diabetes, but it was bad. Her kidneys were shutting down. The doctor at the free clinic looked at us like we was already dead and gave us an appointment for 6 months out. 6 months, bro. My mother was dying, and they told us to wait in line like we was at the DMV. That's when the streets called my name. Big Mike. He ran the corner near our building, heard about my situation and knocked on our door one night. Looked at my mom's wasting away on that busted couch and put $2,000 cash in my hand. Get your moms to a real doctor. We'll talk later. That wasn't a gift. It was a contract, a trade. My soul for my mother's life. With that money, I got her the treatment she needed, the insulin, everything. A week later, Big Mike came calling. The deal was simple. $500 a week to be a lookout. Watch for cops, watch for rivals, keep my mouth shut. My mom's was killing herself for $300 a week. Here I was, 17 years old, about to make almost double that just for standing on a corner. I didn't think twice. That day, I sold my future to save the only person I loved in this world, and I ain't never been able to buy it back. By 18, I wasn't just watching anymore. They gave me product to move. The fear of getting caught was real, but the need was bigger. My mom's medical bills kept coming, and that money was the only thing keeping her alive. I was good at what I did, quiet, focused, never slipped up. But the game don't care how careful you are. One night, undercover rolled up on our spot. I had 2 ounces of rock on me when they grabbed me. Judge looked at me like I was already garbage and gave me 8 to 15. Said I was a menace to society who needed to learn responsibility. Responsibility? I was being more responsible at 18 than half them politicians ever been. I was keeping my mother alive while they was getting rich off campaign donations from private prison companies. Walking into state correctional institution for the first time was like entering hell, with a business plan. That smell hit me first. Bleach, sweat, fear, and something else I couldn't name, but later learned was just pure hopelessness. The walls was gray, everything was gray like they sucked the color out of life itself. First thing they told me, forget who you was outside. In here, you ain't shit until you prove otherwise. My cellmate was a lifer named OG Carlos. Been down for 23 years for a double murder. First night, he looked at me and said, "Kid, you got 2 choices in here. You can be prey or you can be predator, but you can't be nothing in between." That first week nearly broke me. I seen things that would make grown men cry. Watched a kid no older than me get passed around like currency. Seen guards turn their back when certain inmates got beat down. Learned real quick that the law stops at them gates. Inside here, different rules apply. But I also learned something else. The same skills that made me good on the streets. Reading people, staying quiet, knowing when to move and when to be still. Them skills was currency in here too. By month 3, I caught the attention of the real power brokers inside. They called themselves the Board. Lifers who've been running this place longer than some guards been alive. These wasn't just gangbangers. These was businessmen who happened to be locked up. They controlled everything. Who lived, who died, who got commissary, who got protection. Carlos vouched for me, told them I was solid. The leader, a cat named Supreme, who'd been down for 30 years, called me to a meeting in the library. That's where I learned the real truth about the prison system. "Look around, young blood," Supreme told me. "You see all this shit? The overcrowding, the violence, the drugs flowing in here like water? You think that's by accident? This whole place is a business, and we ain't the customers. We the product." He showed me the numbers, explained how private companies make billions off keeping us locked up. How judges got kickbacks for longer sentences. How politicians campaign on fear while their friends get rich building more cages. "The system don't want to rehabilitate nobody," he said. "They want us coming back. That's repeat business, job security for guards, more funding from the state. We just cattle, boy. And cattle don't need education or job training. They just need to stay in the pen until it's time for slaughter." That night, lying on that thin-ass mattress staring at the ceiling, everything clicked. I wasn't here to pay no debt to society. Society put me here to make money off my misery. But Supreme taught me something else too. If you're going to be trapped in the game, you might as well learn to play it. That's when my real education started. Not from no books or programs, from watching how the machine really worked. See, the guards? Most of them was just as trapped as we was. Making $35K a year to babysit killers and drug dealers. Half of them was more fucked up than the inmates. I watched Officer Martinez smuggle in cell phones for $500 a pop. Seen Captain Rodriguez take envelopes full of cash to look the other way when certain shipments came through the kitchen. The warden, though? That's where it got interesting. Warden Thompson was a slick motherfucker. Clean suit, nice car, talked real proper for the cameras. But every month, he had meetings with men in expensive suits, contractors, politicians, people who definitely wasn't part of the Department of Corrections. I got assigned to the warden's office detail after Supreme put in a word. Mopping floors, emptying trash, invisible as furniture. That's when I overheard conversations that would make your blood freeze. "The numbers look good this quarter," one suit said, spreading papers across Thompson's desk. "Occupancy at 127%, drug treatment programs cut by 40%, and recidivism projections holding steady at 68%. Thompson nodded like they was discussing a hotel business. "What about the new wing construction?" "Approved. State allocated $50 million. $million. Your consulting fee will be deposited as usual. Consulting fee? This motherfucker was getting paid extra to keep us locked up and miserable. The worse conditions got, the more money he made from companies that profited off our suffering. But the sickest part? They was planning the failure. Cutting education programs, eliminating job training, making sure we had no skills when we got out. Because broke ex-cons with no options, we come back. And when we come back, them cash registers go cha-ching. I watched Supreme run his operation with more professionalism than most CEOs. Dude had a whole network. Guards on payroll, connections with gangs in every major city, even lawyers feeding him information about upcoming arrests and transfers. The beautiful thing about this place, Supreme explained one day while we was in the yard, is they gave us all the time in the world to perfect our craft. While they thinking we just rotting away, we building empires. His operation was genius. Drugs came in through the medical supply deliveries. Guards would swap out insulin vials with liquid heroin. Phones got smuggled in food shipments. Money moved through the commissary accounts of inmates who didn't even know their accounts was being used. Supreme had guys on the outside moving weight in 3 different states, all coordinated from a 6x8 cell. He made more money locked up than most people make free. And the beautiful part? The system helped him do it. They want us to be criminals, he told me, so we give them criminals, but we be smart about it. By year 2, I was deep in Supreme's circle. Not just muscle, I was his accountant, his communications officer, his strategic planner. I learned to read people, to manipulate guards, to spot weaknesses in the system. Most importantly, I learned that everything has a price. That young CEO who just graduated from the academy, he got student loans. Offer to help with those payments, and suddenly he's blind when you need him to be. That older guard who's bitter about never getting promoted, give him respect, make him feel important, and he'll move heaven and earth to help you. The chaplain who really believed in rehabilitation, he was the easiest mark of all. Just had to convince him you was finding God, and he'd bend rules left and right to support your spiritual journey. I got good at being different people to different folks. To the guards, I was the reformed inmate trying to better himself. To the administration, I was the model prisoner helping with conflict resolution. To other inmates, I was the enforcer who handled problems quietly. But the realest education came when a new fish arrived. Little white boy named Tommy from the suburbs. Kid was 19, in for embezzling from his daddy's law firm to pay gambling debts. First day in population, he was marked for death. Why? I asked Supreme. Kid ain't hurt nobody. Supreme laughed. You still don't get it. That boy's daddy is District Attorney Michael Harrison, the same DA who been pushing for mandatory minimums and 3-strike laws. His own son about to get a reality check about the system daddy helped build. They wasn't gonna kill Tommy quick. They was gonna break him slow, turn him into everything his daddy feared about criminals. And when little Tommy got out, if he got out, he'd either be too broken to talk or he'd be so changed that his own family wouldn't recognize him. That's when it hit me. This whole place was designed to create monsters. Take scared kids like me and Tommy, throw us in a cage with real predators, then act surprised when we come out worse than when we went in. But I also realized something else. I was becoming one of them monsters too. Script continues with more detailed prison experiences, psychological transformation, and the character's gradual understanding of the systemic issues. The day everything changed for me was in year 4. I was 22, been inside long enough to think I understood the game. Supreme called me to the library for a special meeting, said he had something to show me that would open my eyes to the real operation. He pulled out a tablet that definitely wasn't supposed to be in there and showed me spreadsheets that made my head spin. Names, dates, money transfers, court cases. This wasn't just about drugs or phones anymore. Look at this, he said, pointing at the screen. Judge Williams. He sent 12 kids to adult prison last month. All black, all from the same 3 zip codes. Meanwhile, Tommy over there caught the same charge and got sent to minimum security camp with tennis courts and shit. The numbers told a story that made me sick. Private. Prison companies was paying judges to keep beds full. Politicians was getting campaign donations in exchange for supporting laws that guaranteed longer sentences. Even the fucking bail bondsman was in on it. We ain't just fighting other inmates in here, Supreme said. We fighting a whole industry that profits off keeping us down. Every day we spend in these cells is money in somebody else's pocket. That's when he showed me the most fucked up part. There was inmates in there, thousands of them, who should have been released years ago. Paperwork got lost, appeals got denied on technicalities, parole hearings got postponed indefinitely. The system was literally stealing years from people's lives for profit. So what we do about it? I asked. Supreme smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. We beat them at their own game. We document everything. We build cases, we expose the corruption. But we do it smart. We do it from the inside where they can't shut us up. That's when I learned that Supreme wasn't just a drug dealer who got caught. This motherfucker was a former accountant who got set up by his white partners when their embezzlement scheme went bad. He'd been using his time inside to build the most comprehensive case of judicial corruption anyone had ever seen. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you're young enough to get out and actually do something with this information. Me? I'm never leaving this place alive, but you could be the one to blow this whole thing open. That's when the real game started. Supreme handed me a job that would change everything. Keeping detailed records of every dirty transaction that went down. Who paid who? When guards took bribes? Which inmates got special treatment for their connections on the outside? You're gonna be my insurance policy, he said. Every name, every dollar, every dirty deal gets written down. We building a case that's gonna bring down judges, wardens, politicians, the whole fucking pyramid. For the next 3 years, I became the most dangerous man in that prison. Not because I was violent, because I had information. I watched federal judge Patricia Morrison's nephew get caught with a kilo of coke and somehow end up in minimum security while black kids with weed charges got sent to max. I documented how Warden Thompson's rehabilitation programs was just shell companies funneling tax money to his wife's consulting firm. The sickest part was the medical experiments. Yeah, you heard that right. Private pharmaceutical companies was paying the prison to test new drugs on inmates. Depression medication, antipsychotics, experimental painkillers. Guys would sign up thinking they was getting better health care, not knowing they was lab rats. I watched Marcus Williams, 24 years old, go from healthy to completely fucked up after they put him on some trial medication for ADHD. Kid started having seizures, lost 40 pounds, couldn't remember his own mother's name. When his family tried to sue, the prison's legal team made the case disappear. Marcus died in his cell 6 months later. Official cause of death? Heart failure due to pre-existing conditions. Pre-existing conditions, my ass. They killed that boy for drug company profits. By year 6, I had enough evidence to bring down half the criminal justice system in 3 states. But I also had a target on my back bigger than the Liberty Bell. Guards started accidentally putting me in dangerous situations. My cell got tossed every week looking for contraband that wasn't there. They was trying to either silence me or give me enough violations to keep me locked up forever. That's when Supreme made the ultimate sacrifice. He told me he was going to create a distraction big enough for me to get all the evidence to the outside. A prison riot that would draw every guard, every camera, every bit of attention away from what I was really doing. This is my life's work, he told me the night before. Everything I've been through, all them years of watching them destroy our people, this is how I fight back. You make sure the world knows what happened here. The riot lasted 3 days. Supreme orchestrated it perfectly. No inmates got seriously hurt, but it kept the administration busy while I smuggled out years of documentation. Names, bank records, recorded phone calls, everything. I passed it all to my new lawyer on the outside, a young sister named Angela who specialized in civil rights cases. Supreme didn't survive the riot. Official reports said he died of a heart attack during the chaos. But I know they murdered him. Too convenient that the one man who could testify about the corruption just happened to drop dead at 49 years old with no history of heart problems. They made one mistake, though. They let me out on parole 6 months later. Figured without Supreme, I was just another ex-con with wild stories nobody would believe. What they didn't know was that Angela had already started filing federal lawsuits based on the evidence I smuggled out. My first week of freedom was strange as hell. Everything moved too fast. People talked too loud. I couldn't sleep without hearing the sound of cell doors slamming. But I had work to do. Angela introduced me to a federal prosecutor named David Chen, who specialized in corruption cases. When I showed him what we had, his eyes got wide as dinner plates. "This is bigger than Watergate," he said. "You're talking about systemic corruption involving federal judges, state officials, private corporations, and law enforcement. We could take down hundreds of people. But here's the thing about fighting the system fights back. Within a month of my release, I started getting followed. Black SUVs parked outside my apartment. My phone acting weird. People I didn't recognize asking my neighbors questions about me. Then Angela's office got burglarized. Nothing stolen except the computers with backup copies of our evidence. Her car got sabotaged, brake lines cut. She survived the crash but got the message loud and clear. "They're trying to silence us before this gets to trial," she told me from her hospital bed. "We need to go public now before they decide permanent solutions are necessary." That's when we made the decision to leak everything to the press. Washington Post, New York Times, 60 Minutes, everyone. The story broke like a nuclear bomb. Federal investigation reveals massive corruption in private prison system. Judge Williams got arrested at his country club. Warden Thompson tried to flee to Costa Rica, but got picked up at the airport. 3 pharmaceutical companies got hit with federal indictments. The whole house of cards started falling. But the biggest shock came when they arrested District Attorney Michael Harrison, Tommy's daddy. Turns out he'd been taking payments from private prison companies for over a decade, guaranteeing harsh sentences to keep their facilities full. The same man who sent kids like me away for decades was getting rich off our misery. The irony? Tommy had gotten out 2 years earlier, completely broken by what happened to him inside. Kid who went in for white-collar crime came out a hardcore addict who couldn't hold a job. His own father's system destroyed his son, and daddy never saw it coming. 23 judges got indicted. 47 corrections officials arrested. 6 pharmaceutical companies facing federal charges. But you know what the real victory was? They had to release over 2,000 inmates whose cases was tainted by the corruption. Men and women who'd been rotting in cells for crimes they didn't commit or sentences that was illegally enhanced. I testified before Congress, told them everything I seen. Some representatives acted shocked, like they had no idea this was happening, but I could see in their eyes. Most of them knew. They just didn't care, as long as it wasn't affecting their constituents. The prison industrial complex isn't broken, I told the committee. It's working exactly like it was designed to. The problem is, it was designed to exploit people, not rehabilitate them. Today, I'm 29 years old. I run a nonprofit that helps ex-offenders navigate life on the outside. We provide job training, mental health services, legal aid, all the shit the system should have been doing but wasn't profitable enough. My mom's is still alive, diabetes under control, proud of what her son became. She tells people I'm a lawyer now, which ain't technically true but close enough. I use the law as a weapon against the same system that tried to destroy me. Tommy reached out to me last year. He's in recovery trying to put his life back together. We talk sometimes about what we went through, how that place changed us. He understands now what his father's policies really meant. Not just numbers on a spreadsheet, but human lives destroyed for profit. Angela recovered from her injuries and we opened a law firm together. Chen left the prosecutor's office to join us. We specialize in taking on corruption cases, especially in the criminal justice system. We win about 70% of our cases, and every victory feels like revenge for Supreme and all the others who died fighting this system. But I ain't gonna lie to you, the system is still rigged. They reformed some policies, fired some bad actors, but the fundamental problem remains. There's too much money in keeping people locked up, too much political capital in being tough on crime. For every judge we got removed from the bench, 3 more take their place with the same incentives. For every warden we exposed, the next one just gets better at hiding the corruption. It's like fighting a hydra. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. The real change gonna come from people like you understanding the truth. When voters realize that law and order politicians are really just salesmen for the prison industry, maybe they'll stop buying what they're selling. When parents understand that their tax dollars are going to companies that profit from destroying lives instead of healing communities, maybe they'll demand better. When young people see that the choice ain't between being a criminal or being a victim, that there's a third option called fighting for justice, maybe the next generation won't have to go through what me and Supreme and thousands of others went through. I still have nightmares about that place. Still wake up sometimes thinking I'm back in that cell. But I also dream about the Day when no kid has to choose between watching their mother die or selling drugs to save her life. The system wants you to think that people like me are the problem, that if they just lock up enough of us, society will be safe. But the real criminals wear suits and ties. They sit in boardrooms and courtrooms and legislative chambers, making billions off human suffering while pretending to protect public safety. The question ain't whether the system is broken. The question is whether you're going to help fix it or keep pretending it ain't your problem. Because one day, it might be your son, your brother, your father sitting in that cell realizing that justice ain't blind. She just got her eyes closed to the truth. My names still don't matter, but the truth I'm telling you, that matters for all of us. The choice is yours. Remember Supreme, remember Marcus, remember Tommy, remember all the ones who didn't make it out to tell their story. And remember that the cage they built for us, it's bigger than you think. Some of y'all just don't know you're in it yet.